If you're thinking about developing real estate in Philadelphia, you definitely do not want to make these mistakes. I have seen investors lose six figures, and I've seen projects flat out fall apart because of some of these missteps. So in this video, I'm going to break down the top development mistakes in Philadelphia and how you can avoid them. I have worked with dozens of developers across Philly. I've consulted on everything from townhome builds to large multi-unit projects, and I've developed ground up myself. And I've watched people get burned because they skipped steps, rushed the process, or just didn't understand how Philadelphia works. So my hope is to help you avoid that. My name is Marco DiGabriele. I'm a real estate agent, investor, and developer here in Philadelphia. My goal is to give you everything that you need to profitably build, buy, or invest in real estate in this city. If you're a developer or investor looking to source land, analyze deals, or sell your next project, shoot me an email or drop a comment below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss a breakdown. The number one mistake that I've seen people make is buying a piece of land or a property without fully understanding the feasibility and the zoning of what can be built there. So you really need to be sure when you're purchasing a property that you know what you can build on that land and that you can build what you want to build. A lot of times investors assume that they can build what they think that they can build, and they really get burnt because then they can't, and they have to go through a variance, and a variance is not a very simple process. I do have a different video where I talk about variances and a little bit more about that process, but that process can take 6 to 9 months, and it's not guaranteed that you're gonna get approved. So always check Atlas, check the zoning overlays, and consult with an architect or a zoning attorney before going under contract, or at least before your deposit money goes hard. Like, confirm these things during the inspection period at the very least, because once your deposit money's hard and then you're settling on the land, if you find out that you can't do what you want to do, that is going to be a huge issue and it could cost you a lot of money. And secondly, just be very mindful of the size of the lot as well, because if you buy a lot that is irregularly shaped or just not large enough to really develop the right type of product, that's going to be a challenge, and you might not stack up very well compared to a lot of the comparable properties that are on normal sized lots or just normal shaped lots, because you're going to have just a different element that you're combating against. The second really big mistake is just underestimating the construction costs. I do see a lot of people who take a look at a deal and they just really don't have a very clear understanding of what the development is actually going to cost them. So another thing I would suggest while you're under contract and before you've actually purchased the property is to at least consult a GC who operates in Philadelphia and get an understanding of what this is going to cost you. A lot of times they can give you a pretty accurate back of the napkin estimate on what the cost to develop is going to be. And definitely don't forget about some of the smaller costs that arise throughout the process as well, like paying the attorney, the architect, there's city fees that are involved with building in Philadelphia. So just make sure that you take those things into account, because if you don't, it can really quickly eat into your profit. And just underestimating the construction cost in general is probably one of the biggest factors that I see in people who have a successful project versus a not successful project. The people who are successful are very dialed in and they really stick to their budget and know what it costs to build. The third mistake that I see is really not having a clear game plan on whether you're going to sell the property or hold on to it and rent it once it's developed. From my experience, if you're going to design something for sale versus designing something for rent, those are two very different thought processes, and you're going to want to put different things into those units, and that is based on layouts, that's also design and finishes. Those things are not comparable when it comes to rentals versus sales quality construction. So if you don't make that decision early enough, I've seen people build things that are initially meant to be a rental, and then they decide to sell it but they didn't really develop it in a way that was conducive of it being a for sale unit. It was really developed to be a rental with rental grade finishes, and the layout might be more for tenants who are sharing an apartment than they are for a family who's going to move into the condo and actually enjoy it as a home that they purchase. So not being clear on that early, or having to change your game plan middle of the way through after you've already decided on finishes, in my opinion, is a mistake that sometimes is unavoidable because things do change with like financing and things like that, but it's something to be aware of. If you think you're going to have to pivot from selling a product to renting it, or renting a product to selling it, you want to make that decision as early as possible so that you can really like factor your budget the correct way and put in the right finishes and put the right thought behind the layout. The next mistake that I think is a really big one is not understanding how to analyze a deal before buying the land, and you end up overpaying for the land. Overpaying for the initial property before you've done anything is one of the #1 reasons why deals don't work. People just simply overpay for the deal, and then even if they build it for the right price and get good financing and sell it for a good price, because they overpaid for the initial investment, there's really just no profit margin. So you really want to be dialed in, again, before you purchase a property, with understanding what the numbers are, understanding how long is this going to take for me to develop, and coming to a number to purchase the property that makes sense, and really sticking to your number. Like if you operate and you want a 15 or 20% margin on the sale from what you're going to spend on the entire development to the profit margin, you need to stick to that. And you can't overpay and have it be a lesser margin than really what your numbers are and what your game plan says. So you need to understand your game plan before you purchase land and make sure that you're not overpaying for it. And the final mistake that I see developers make is just underestimating the timeline that it's going to take to build a new construction home. You can hit delays for a number of reasons. With the city, it could happen as early as the permitting process with the city. You could also hit delays during the process with inspections that are happening from the city. You could hit delays from contractors not being available or materials not being available. And any delay in your project is meaningful if you have financing on the project, because you're going to be paying interest for the term of the loan. So if you have a construction loan, the longer that the construction takes and the longer the sale of the property takes, the more interest is accruing, and it can really, really quickly eat into your profits. And I've seen people's profits get wiped very quickly just because they held onto a property for way too long because the construction took too long, or the sale of the property took too long because they didn't design it right, or they overpriced it because they went over budget and then they tried to get a price that didn't even make sense in the market, and it just compounds and compounds and makes it worse and worse. So that's definitely a huge mistake that you want to avoid, is underestimating the timeline, because you really want to avoid having to get extensions from your bank when you're dealing with a construction loan. If you're developing in Philadelphia or you're thinking about it, definitely drop a comment below or reach out to me directly. Happy to help you find a deal, structure your project the right way, and hopefully exit it to make it a great development deal for you. If you found value in this video, definitely do not forget to hit the subscribe button. I'll see you next time.